Good morning. Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart, Indiana. My name is John Halstead. My pronouns are they, them, and I participate in the life of the church by serving on the board. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles, both of which can be found online at uua.org. Together, we strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. Our full-time minister, Tom Bozeman, will be beginning services next week. When we do not have a minister in the pulpit, we invite guests or members to share a special message with us, and this is one such Sunday. We're fortunate to hear from Michael Dowd, who will be joining us remotely. We are currently streaming our services online. The Joys and Sorrows portion of our service is, however, private, and we'll take a break from streaming during that part of the service. The sermon portion of the service will be recorded and made available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Let your Facebook and Twitter friends know that you are attending worship with the hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. Due to COVID-19, we ask that we're encouraging all attendees of the Sunday services to wear masks, covering both the nose and mouth. And if you'd like a mask, we have one that we can provide to you. We thank you for your consideration of our community's health and safety. Because our music director, Jeremy Jacobson, is not with us today, we were not going to have a prelude. Instead, we're going to have a 1-minute moment of silence. So please take a breath now and join us in a spirit of reverence. Please join me now in lighting our chalice. The words are printed on your orders of service and in the yellow handouts in your pews. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share. Join me now in lighting our chalice. The words are printed on your orders of service and in the... Okay. Our opening words are an excerpt from a poem, Hieroglyphic Stairway by Drew Dellinger. It's 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the earth was plundered? What did you do while the planet was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as all the mammals, reptiles, birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? Please join us now in our opening hymn number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Please rise as you are willing and able. The music will be played over the speakers.
Please join in singing hymn number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky.
That started in the middle. All right, let's stop the music. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. So do we have 2 or 3 strong singers who can lead us maybe in this hymn? Hallelujah.
Thanks for the notice. All right. No pressure now. Yeah, thanks. We'll take it a little slower too, both for you and for me. Thank you, Dowd. Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores of spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, where faith hath quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answer show, and out of love they learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die. Lies the time left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, hark the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. Touch the earth, reach the sky, soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly, to touch the earth, to reach the sky.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. And I'm sure that will make us all appreciate Jeremy so much more when he comes back. Now, please remain standing for our affirmation of faith. The words are printed on your yellow handouts. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please take a few minutes here to greet your neighbors. This is contactless greeting, so wave. If you're wearing a mask, let your smile reach beyond the corners of your mask. Don, can you help us out one more time with the doxology? Sky. Thank you all very much. This congregation expresses our greatest joys and deepest sorrows in community. We believe that a joy shared is magnified and a sorrow shared is diminished. We pause, listening to what arises from within our hearts. Your joys and sorrows will not be streamed online, nor will it be made a part of the recording, which is made public. Due to COVID, we will not be passing the microphone, so please speak loudly when you share your joys and concerns. If you cannot hear a speaker, please raise your hand and I'll paraphrase into the microphone. including those which are too tender to share. I want to introduce now Reverend Michael Dowd. He is a best-spelling, I'm sure he's a good speller too. Best-selling, actually I think his wife may be the editor, but anyway, best-selling TEDx speaker, UU eco-theologian, and pro-science, pro-future advocate, whose book, Thank God for Evolution, was endorsed by 6 Nobel Prize-winning scientists, among others. Their work has been featured in the New York Times, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and many other publications. Michael and his science writer and educator and fellow climate activist wife, Connie Barlow, have spoken to over 500 UU churches and fellowships and delivered TEDx talks and talked to the United Nations. And in 2016, Michael and Connie were honored as UU Religious Humanists of the Year. Their passion is sharing the inspiring side of science in a way that offers both practical tools for living in chaotic times and inspiration for engaging in the vital work of intergenerational justice. And I would encourage you all to check out Michael's latest project at postdoom.org, where he has conversations with people about the state of our world, especially around climate change and civilizational collapse. So thank you all, and thank you, Michael, for joining us.
So, on this topic of parenting and grandparenting in contracting, crazy making times, this is fundamentally, I think, the most important issue of my life now. And for my remaining days, weeks, months, if I'm graced to have years, I don't think I've got decades, but in my remaining time, this is the heart of the message, which is how to communicate to young people, but also especially to parents and to grandparents. What is needed in these times? It's not more hopium. Hopium is not just what gives you hope, but it's hoping for things that are actually impossible, things that would require breaking the laws of physics, biology, or ecology. Truly impossible hopes. It's basically hoping for things that give you comfort in the short run, but because what you're hoping for basically encourages exactly what has caused ecocide in the first place, the main things that have caused us to collapse the biosphere and the climate and everything else, because it banks on those, it's impossible hopes. So it's not about hopium. And many people get the wrong impression. They think that it's all about either, I gotta have hope, or I'm doomed. They think hope and doom, hope and fear are the only two options. That's why my life is now devoted to post-doom. Hope-free is the way Stephen Jenkinson, the legendary grief walker, speaks about it. Our time requires us to be hope-free, he says, to burn through the false choice of being hopeful or hopeless. They're both a part of the same con job. Grief is required to proceed. So what I'd like to say is really build on, I want to talk about three things. Accepting what we cannot change, the old 12-step prayer, God, life, reality, universe. Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A lot of people don't know the next line that Reinhold Niebuhr penned. Living one day at a time, accepting one moment at a time, cherishing hardship as the pathway to peace. Say, what? So the first thing I want to say to all of us who are parents or grandparents or simply involved in the lives of young people in any capacity is that it's not too late. It's not too late to be a loving person. It's not too late to be a generous, compassionate contribution to your communities. It's not too late to make a profound difference in lessening the suffering that other people are experiencing and other species are experiencing. It's not too late to do things that are a contribution to the future with or without us, even if our species goes extinct in the next few decades. And make no mistake, that is possible. It's not too late for any of that. And the only way to fully experience the benefits of full collapse acceptance, full collapse trust, is to recognize that collapse is a feature, not a bug, of civilization. We have over 100 examples of civilizations in human history over the last 6,000 or 7,000 years. Every single one of them has collapsed for often the same reasons. It's known as ecological overshoot. That is, we use too much of the living world, we generate too much waste, and the systems start breaking down, and we find that's collapse. It's the collapse of ecosystems, which takes many, many, many decades. It's often sometimes a generation a century or more. And we're living not only in the collapse of the biosphere, which has been an unstoppable collapse for it probably hasn't been unstoppable for 250 years, but it's been in collapse for 250 years, and it's been in wicked unstoppability for the last 40 or 50 years. But we're also in the unstoppable collapse of Western industrial, not just Western, just industrial civilization, capitalism, because we treat the living world not as Gaia. We don't treat the living world the way that I've been doing, spelling God, G, Earth emoji, D. In other words, we don't treat the living world, we don't treat the biosphere as what it is, our biophysical creator, sustainer, and end. We treat it merely as resources and a place for our waste, which is, of course, the definition of unsustainability. So the first thing to accept is that it's not too late for everything that gives life meaning and joy. And it's not even too late to save industrial civilization or too late to spare humanity from a quite likely extinction. Those were never possible in the first place. Every civilization collapses for well-known reasons. And the difference between our civilization and previous civilizations is we're global. And we've become what my great mentor, William Catton, calls homo colossus. That is, each one of us on this call and in this congregation uses 30 to 50 times the resources and exudes 30 to 50 times the waste as Homo sapiens. So homo colossus is absolutely destined for near-term extinction. That may or may not mean the extinction of our species in the short term. Certainly, we will absolutely go extinct at some point. But the likelihood of that happening this century, in fact, the likelihood of that happening in the next few decades is well over 50%. So how do we be with that? Especially how do we be with that with children and grandchildren? Because that can be crushing to even consider that. So most of us reach for the hopium pipe. We reach for anything that gives us hope. And yet the paradox is just like a terminal condition. It's only when you stop the fight and truly accept that, oh, you're going to die in the not too distant future, that you then have just a wellspring of joy and passion. I went through cancer 13 years ago, and as long as I was fearful and afraid that I would die soon, which I could have, I was terrified. And I was anxious off the charts. It was only when I truly accepted, oh, I could die in the next 8 months. If this chemo doesn't work, I will die most likely in the next 8 months. Then from that moment on, once I accepted that, I was fearless. I had the peace that passes understanding, is the way religious people talk about it. I had gratitude for the past and trust in the future, including a future that might not include me much further. So why I'm so passionate about the big picture, what I mean by the big picture is the whole history of life and humanity. Because you realize when you get that picture that, oh my gosh, unsustainable civilizations always, for very well-known reasons, commit ecocide. They all shoot themselves and kill themselves, basically, unless a volcano wipes them out or something. And there's never been a civilization or society in human history that became sustainable on the way down. It can't be done. So accepting that, and we don't want to accept that, because the two things I want to talk about in terms of accepting what we cannot change. One is that everything is unraveling. We're all circling the drain, as it were. The biosphere, society, the political dysfunction, the economic dysfunction, the most painful thing for those of us who have been liberals and progressives for any length of time is to recognize that universal justice and universal peace will never happen. As societies expand, the pie gets bigger, liberal values predominate. On the downslope, on the decades of collapse, in-group, out-group fighting, fascism, totalitarianism, all these kinds of things, and it's unstoppable. That doesn't mean that we can't carry the values, progressive, liberal values, but it's not going to be easy. We're going to see the kind of polarization, the kind of political and economic insanity that we've been seeing. So accepting that things are collapsing, they're contracting, the speed is picking up, and there's nothing that we can do about it. That's the piece that we activists have the most difficult time. Nothing can be done at the larger scale. We can do lots of things locally. There's tremendous amount that we can do. Just because we can't save everything doesn't mean there's not a tremendous amount that we can do that nourishes our souls, that allow us to look in the mirror and feel good, and that where our young people are proud of us. Not because we're saving their future, we no longer can do that. It's way, way, way out of our control. There are so many things that are already in runaway mode, like the burning of the forests of the world. Every year, more forests, bigger forests, more forest fires, and it's unstoppable. If 8 billion human beings all united together tomorrow morning to do the right thing, it wouldn't stop the forests of the world from burning. It wouldn't stop the loss of the coral reefs. It wouldn't stop the wigging out of the jet stream, so that the patterns that grow food that allow us to have 8 billion people in civilization, it's not only going away, it's already going. We will likely see starvation this decade that takes out several billion people or more. So the other thing that's unstoppable, the other thing that's inevitable, is that most people will deny that. So don't try to convince people of it. Just love them. And in fact, if you right now are thinking Dowd is crazy, be okay with that. Wake up tomorrow and think I'm full of dung. That's okay. Because denial is a healthy, normal, natural part of our psyches. And if this is something you cannot emotionally accept, then don't. Just follow your heart. And the most important thing, moving to the second thing. So first is accepting what we can't change. One is that things are collapsing. And the other is that most people will deny that and not accept that as long as possible. So then to choose, what can we choose? So those are the things to accept that we can't change. What can we choose? Where can we make a difference? Where can we be a blessing? What can we choose? Well, one of the things that we can choose is to view life, to interpret life mythically. And by mythic, I mean personally, like where you interpret your relationship to the universe, to reality in a personal way. So when things happen that are difficult or challenging or painful, you don't go to that place of victim, like, why me? Why now? How come I have to be alive now? Why does my children or grandchildren have to experience this? All that stuff, which is totally legitimate, and it's disempowering and useless. But interpreting mythically and generously, say, okay, how is this the universe conspiring on our behalf? Am I saying that the universe is conspiring on all our behalf and causing all the suffering? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if we act as if whatever occurs to us can be interpreted as a blessing in disguise, we love our lives. We then be a blessing to others. Because what we know from past civilizational collapse and past empire collapse is that heroes, sheroes, saints, and sages emerge in precisely these times. It's people who look beyond their own self-centeredness and look for who's suffering more than them, and then finding ways to be a contribution, to be a blessing to others and to other species. My wife's great work is helping trees migrate faster than any other animal can move their seeds. She says, even if we go extinct in the next 2 decades, I'm doing holy work. I'm helping trees. So accepting what we can't change, which is we're part of a contracting civilization, we're part of a collapsing biosphere, and there's nothing that we can do individually or collectively to stop those large-scale patterns, but there's a lot we can do to be a blessing locally, and where we can actually help young people and children find joy. Because here's the thing, the most important thing I'm going to say in this whole sermon is this: our times are calling for true adults and true elders. We parents and grandparents, it's time to step into our greatness as parents and grandparents and truly be adults and truly be elders. And what that means is that we don't toxify our young people and our children with all of our fear and our judgment and our bitterness and our resentfulness and our just all of that stuff. No, we suck it up. We choose to say, okay, I was born in this time. I was born in this civilization. I didn't have a choice. But I choose, as one friend and colleague says, we were made for these times. Don't lose hope. We were made for these times. Again, that's thinking mythically, but it's an empowering way to think. And you're going to inspire young people, because the most important thing we can do is ensure that young people, A, are aware that we're in contraction. So they know that every year or every month or every year, things are going to get more and more difficult. They don't need to know more than that. They're going to find out more than that on their own. You don't have to tell them. But if you know that we're in a contraction pattern and things are going to get tougher from here on out, and death will probably come sooner than most of us like, we don't have to then be about doom scrolling, because bouncing between hope and fear, hope and fear, hope and fear, that we will all do until we accept that this is the fact. We are in a contracting, collapsing biosphere, a contracting, collapsing civilization, a collapsing of the stability that allowed civilization to even start in the first place and certainly get to 7 or 8 billion people. And all of that's unstoppable, as well as it's unstoppable that most people are going to deny that. So we can have generosity and compassion towards our friends, neighbors, and relatives if they're not ready to accept this. That's okay. We can love them anyway. And we can love ourselves, those parts of us that can't fully accept this yet. But then we choose to interpret personally and mythically. We choose to, as one of our colleagues, one of John's and my colleagues, John Michael Greer, speaks about it. He says, collapse now and avoid the rush. We can all choose to downshift. We can use less energy. We can use less stuff, less stimulation. We can all downshift our expectations and downshift our consumption pattern. We can eat lower on the food chain. There's all kinds of things we can do. Is it going to save the world? No. But it's going to help you look in the mirror and feel good about yourself. It's going to help save your soul. And one of the things I forgot to say at the start that I really have to say, which is, I know I'm speaking from a privileged perspective and you're hearing from a privileged perspective. Most of us that are in this conversation right now are not struggling against starvation. Heat or drought or flood isn't like within a day or two or week of killing us. And there are many, many millions of people around the world that that's not true for. So one is to recognize that we are still in a privileged position. The Grim Reaper has not yet shown up for us or our loved ones. And yet to also cherish the fact that, okay, yes, I was born into this privilege. Here I am. Now, how can I make the best of it? And how can I celebrate with gratitude what I do have for while I have it, and recognize that impermanence, that things are going away, and that's unstoppable. So again, choosing to be adults and elders, choosing to not toxify our young people and our children with our fears and our bitterness and our terror and all that stuff. We need to, basically what I'm trying to say is, we need to move through, we elders and adults and parents, we need to move through the stages of grief as soon as possible, like consciously, deliberately. Move through denial, move through the anger, move through the bargaining, move through the depression to full acceptance. And then on the other side of acceptance comes trust. And that's when gallows humor. I can always tell people who are either in denial or still in anger bargaining mode, or who are truly in trust acceptance by how they react to the movie Don't Look Up. That's my favorite movie. It is pure gallows humor. But if you're still in fight activist mode, if you're still in terror, no, this can't be. If we just get enough wind turbines, if we get enough solar panels, if Biden's Build Back Better, if this new Green New Deal, no. Solar panels and wind turbines will make things worse. Technology and the market are the two most fundamental causes of ecocide. Technology and the market can't save us, and that is a bitter, bitter pill. And yet when we accept that, we open ourselves up to experiencing love and compassion and joy in ways that we couldn't. So let me wind this down. So first, accepting what we can't change, that we're in contraction, we're in collapse, it's unstoppable, the pace is picking up, and climate change is only one small aspect of it. Climate change is one small aspect, it's huge, but it's one aspect of ecological overshoot. And if we could somehow miraculously solve climate, which we can't, there are a half a dozen other tipping points that we've already crossed that are probably extinction level. So that's the first, and accept that most people can't accept that. So we can have love and compassion with our friends and neighbors and relatives and everybody else and ourselves if we can't fully accept that yet. The second is to choose to interpret mythically, to choose to find where can I be a contribution and a blessing, to choose to collapse now and avoid the rush, to choose life. Because you are still alive. Every meal that you eat, it's possible to eat this meal with a sense of gratitude that's almost so intense that you're almost moved to tears. Wow, I can still go to the grocery store. I can still put gas in my car. I can still eat this food. I can still go for a walk. I've still got a roof over my head. All those things could be taken away from us in the next 3 to 5 years, no matter how privileged we are. And so the last thing I want to talk to is attending to not only what matters most, so accepting, choosing, and then attending to what matters most. And it's the amazing thing is, these are always the things that have mattered most in every culture, every society, especially in times of contraction and collapse. What matters most are our relationships. What matters most is our integrity, our ability to look ourselves in the mirror and not feel shame or guilt or embarrassment. And the quality of our relationships is dependent largely on how generous we are in terms of how we deal with where we have caused suffering or pain or difficulty or challenge, or where we've lied, where we've been a jerk. It's amazing how much healing can happen with relationships with your parents if they're still alive, your children, your siblings, your former lovers or former spouses, your friends, whatever, or ex-friends. Just you have the power to transform 95% of those relationships. And it starts with being able to say, you know, so-and-so, I've been thinking about my life and my relationship to you, and I never apologized to you for being such an asshole. You want to see magic happen? Excuse my language. I know I'm speaking in a church situation, but when we can own our own doo-doo, when we can own where we've been a jerk, where we've been judgmental, where we've been self-righteous, where we've been addictive, where we've been deceptive, when we can own that and just communicate with a sense of regret and vulnerability, miracles can occur. Because what matters most in times of contraction and collapse are the quality of your relationships, the relationships to your family, the relationships to ex-family or people who you currently consider ex-family, the relationships with neighbors and friends. Now is the time to get to know your neighbors. Before the poop hits the oscillator with more vigorousness, now is the time to be generous to your neighbors. Bring them a plate of cookies, invite them over for dinner, or sit outside if you're just, concerned about the mask thing, understandably. But it's not too late for that. And attending to what matters most really is about cleaning up, clearing up, and redeeming. There's so much of our lives and our own impact, our own wake that we've left that we can actually redeem, that we can actually heal. And that will, all you have to do is communicate one letter. If you write a letter of gratitude once a week to somebody who's been a contribution or a blessing to you in your life, and this might be decades ago, and you just communicate, I've been thinking about my life and I never thanked you for the influence you had on my life. And you just write that letter. You will probably be in tears when you write the letter, especially if it was an important relationship, and they will be blown out of the water. And especially when you do that with family, with people you've been estranged with, truly miracles can happen. So attending to what matters most is attending to the quality of our relationships and bringing our attention from this level to honoring the soil beneath your feet, honoring the soil that you get to interact with in any capacity, honoring the land upon which your house is. You can be as totally urban as I know most of you are, and still nurture a love relationship with the soil, the forest, the water, the life. We can all choose to turn our screens off more often and spend more time outdoors, to do little kind, generous acts. These are the things that have always mattered most, and the things that give life joy and meaning, especially in times when outer circumstances don't tend to give joy and meaning all that easily. The way to do that is to be generous and kind. The way to do that is to heal broken relationships. And that happens most powerfully when you apologize, when you say, I know I can't change the past, but if I could go back, I would do it really differently. Just even a communication like that. It's called making amends in sort of the 12-step world, but you don't have to do that. So accepting what we cannot change, choosing to view life mythically, and choosing to collapse now and avoid the rush, to lessen, to lighten your load and become less and less dependent upon complex structures, because some of those are going to go away real soon. And I'm even talking in the next year or two, some of that could go away. We're dealing with chip crises and inflation and food crisis. I mean, I'm not going to give a litany of the bad news. You all know it. You don't need to hear it from me. But what I do hope to give you a vision is post-doom, no gloom. The only way to get to post-doom is you got to go through doom. You got to first feel, oh no. If you don't feel that, then you're still in denial. You're still hitting the opium pipe. But if you truly accept that we're in contraction, choose to find a way to be a blessing to others, and then attend to what matters most, the quality of your relationships, the quality of being a blessing to others, and then finally just celebrate the little daily practices, the things you do on a ritual. And I use the word ritual simply meaning patterned, meaningful speech and behavior. Meaningful patterned speech and behavior with regards to your meals, with regards to anything that you do on a daily or weekly basis. Those can be ritualized in the sense of just made a little formalized that allow you to feel a sense of gratitude and awe and like, wow, I'm alive another week. What a gift. And then those of us who are parents and grandparents do everything that we possibly can to not instill fear in young people, but to basically do everything we can to infuse hope, not hopium, but hope just in the sense of living joyfully, hope-free, but living joyfully. I live 2 blocks from my 2-year-old granddaughter. She's 2 years and 2 months old. I doubt she'll ever see the age of 20. And yet I'm committed to doing everything I possibly can to ensure that she have the best life possible for as long as possible. And we can all do that if we choose to be adults and elders and not think that our role is to communicate this desperate, passionate, like, your generation has to save us. No, there is no saving us anymore. There may still be some humans in pockets on the planet 10 or 20, 30 years from now, but there may not be. We don't know. But what we do know is where each of us can be a blessing and go deep into your tradition, the Unitarian Universalist tradition, and in fact, all the religious traditions, their full potential can be unlocked now in these collapsing times. There's never been a time more perfect for the emergence, the reemergence, the reincarnation, to use religious language, the resurrection, to use religious language, of the core gems of our tradition, because this is when we will need them in times where we are compassionate, suffering with each other. So I'd like to conclude with 3 quotes that I find helpful and inspiring on these times. The first I alluded to earlier from Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Do not lose heart. We were made for these times. The second from Kate Marvel, a climate scientist. We need courage, not hope, to face climate change. Courage is the resolve to do well without the assurance of a happy ending. And then finally, Chris Martinson. I love this. It's so practical. Plant a garden. Meet your neighbors. Practice generosity. Learn new skills. Control what you can and leave the rest. Amen.
Thank you, Michael. Our closing hymn is number 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. One second. Now is the time in our service for our offering. And Joe, yes, you can definitely hum. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. There is an online link for those who are online for regular and one-time donations. You can also contribute money in person by putting paper money and loose change in the baskets and cups. The paper money will go to the sustaining of the mission of this church, and the money in the cups goes to our Faith in Action Committee with a different charity chosen by the committee every month. This month's charity is every town for sensible gun control. Please try not to touch the baskets and cups as our ushers bring them to you. Thank you. offerings, your prayers, your presence, your service, and your gifts. We are truly grateful. Now, please join us in our closing hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Please rise as you are able. I think we have music. Cool. But stay here, just in case. Closing words will be by Michael Dowd. Please be seated.
May we leave this place, this virtual space, this congregational place, celebrating the best of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal tradition, celebrating our differences, being a blessing to all those with whom we come into contact, and not bemoan the fact that we live at Teotawaki, the end of the world as we know it, but cherishing the fact that we are graced and privileged to be alive at Teotawaki, and let's just see how much love and generosity and kindness, reality, can flow through me to be a contribution to others. Amen, aho, and blessed be.
Our postlude will be another rendition of Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, which I really liked, but wasn't helpful for singing as a congregation. So.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores, all spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faith, our quest, ocean, over the land, our faith, our quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answer show, and by our love they learn and grow.
Please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are printed on your handouts and in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us for a coffee hour. Are we in the garden? Yes. In the garden Thank you very much.